Imagine acquiring an $8 billion entity, and then shortly after you acquire it, the entire market crashes, and you're left with a personal loss of over $100 million. How do you deal with that? More importantly, how do you dust yourself off, pick yourself up, and somehow create incredible success? Listen to the fascinating story of David Lichtenstein this week on Jewish Grit. David, I'd like to jump right into Jewish Grit. I mean, the concept is that you're Jewish and that sometimes you got to grit your teeth and you got to work through difficult situations. When I say the word Jewish Grit and I talk a little bit about challenges and somehow getting through them, what enters your mind?
Well, I started my business on my own, knowing nothing about business. So I would say that every possible mistake that you can make, I've made.
And how do you rebound back every time that you make a mistake?
So it's a sense of core beliefs. And I'll share some of them with you.
Sure.
I remember I once did a deal in Kentucky. And my flight was like at 6 in the evening, and it was done at 2. So the guy who was my host said, he said, "Would you like to see a horse auction?" So I said, "Sure, racing horses." Yeah. So we went to the auction, and a brown horse came out, and it was like $2,000. Then another brown horse came out, and it was $12,000. And another brown horse came out, and it was $1 million. To me, they all look like brown horses. Maybe one had a speckle, one didn't. And the guy says, "You don't understand. The first horse is really a laboring horse. The second horse, it's a decent horse, but it has no ancestry." He says, "The last horse is a grandchild of Secretariat from one side, from Rolling Thunder on the other side." And he said, when these horses come around the track and they see the finish line, something inside of them, we don't know what it is, just ignites, and those are the champions. And that's what people are betting on when they buy a yearling for $1 million. And I think it's the same thing. We come originally from Abraham, right? Abraham, the Bible says, went through all 10 of the 10 tests God gave him. And if you Google the most difficult things that can happen to a person in life, and you Google what happened to Abraham, they coincide. Sickness, war, death, loss of his wife, child, anything you could imagine. And he's called Abraham our father. And the message is, if your father was a great football player, every college looks at you and they say, "Oh, it's in the genes." Right? If your father was a great basketball player, like that fellow from L.A., right? Mm-hmm. They say, "Oh, the kid's going to be something." We have to look at ourselves as we are the children of somebody, of a nation that's gone through every imaginable hardship. So when it hits us, we've been there, we've seen it, we've done it, we've survived it, and so can you.
Can I drill down a little bit more? Can you give us an example where you felt you had to draw on your ancestral strength?
Yeah, well, my biggest blow-up failure was I bought a company called Extended Stay America, hotel company.
Sure.
And I bought it for $8 billion. And it went bust in the Great Recession of 2008.
Oh, sure.
At the same time that Fannie went bust, and Freddie went bust, and
the banks.
Banks went bust, and Lehman went bust. Mm-hmm. And it was, I personally lost $500 million on one transaction, and I inherited nothing, so it was all money I earned. And it was very painful. And a lot of compatriots of mine who went through difficult times at that time, such as Lehman, never got back up on their feet again. But I said, I have to get back on my feet again, and I have to draw on different strengths that Judaism teaches us. And that was one of them.
How do you find strength?
Well, one of them is knowing that we've done it and we've survived. More serious things. I think there's another Jewish teaching that is very powerful, and that is the belief that each of us is a one-of-a-kind creation. So the Talmud writes this 2,000 years ago, or 1,500 years ago, but science tells us the same thing.
DNA.
Each of us have our own DNA, our own fingerprint. More than that, if you go to a gym, today, your retina is one of a kind. No two people have the same retina. If you look in your eyeball and the door opens up. Now, the ear, everybody's ear is shaped differently. There's a company that's raising money that when bank calls you, they want you to confirm a wire. And now with AI, you can fake. So one of the things is everybody's ear canal is different. And the way the response bounces off your ear canal, they know who you are.
Wow.
So we are truly each individuals. And we also believe, as individuals, each of us has our own mission. And if something were to happen to you, nobody in the world could ever replace you in that mission that you were brought here to do. Everybody remembers when the Challenger blew up and everybody was killed. And the Challenger, which was a multi-billion-dollar rocket, blew up because an $11 rubber gasket failed. And that's a very Jewish concept. I don't know if I'm the rubber gasket, I don't know if I'm the engine, but I know I'm irreplaceable. And I know I have a mission. And being bankrupt isn't one part of that mission. So it must mean that it's time to get back up on my feet, and it's time for you to get back up on your feet and go accomplish your mission.
How does one find their unique mission?
I think at some point in life, there's something that speaks to you really powerfully and that other people may or may not hear, and that's the voice that comes to you. And it could be many things. Like I know there have been many different things I'm involved in, such as Kirov, right? Outreach, which I'm doing in my own way. I have this new Instagram podcast, or it's Instagram, YouTube. It's called We Are Off the Page. And I think throughout life, we all have voices that we hear and that others don't hear. And I'm talking about voices of good and voices of reason and voices of positivity, not, the crazy voices that people hear. And when we hear that voice, it's really our mission talking to us.
So how do you balance? I know that I came into your apartment and you were sitting there and you had a Torah book open and that's what you were doing. How do you balance that with your professional career?
So I think it's a few things. I think one is about, like everything else in life, boundaries. Like when I do this, I do this. When I do this, I do that. And set up, the times that you need for each of them. And those times in life change. So for example, when I went out to work, my wife was expecting our second kid. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I went into real estate because I figured you really don't need to know much to get into real estate. It's in effect.
No college degree.
No college degree, And I was working 100-hour weeks trying to get established. And I couldn't learn for the first few years much at all. I was Yaitz Kriya Shema Shachar and Arvis, But then as you get established and you realize, hey, there's such a thing called delegating, you're putting bread on the table already, and you say, I have a certain amount of free time. Well, you can spend that free time scrolling through Instagram. You can do it, watching movies and Netflix. And I always get a kick when I see in the paper, the New York Times again, the 15 movies on Netflix you must see this week before they're phased out. I'm thinking 50. I haven't watched a movie probably in 25 years, right? So it's a question of where do you want to spend your really valuable time? And I'm not speaking anything about, if you want to watch Netflix, bless you. If you feel that it really chills you out and takes away the stress in your life, then it's really important and holy. But if you feel there's something else that speaks to you, and I had learned in yeshiva for many years beforehand, and learning is a really meaningful part of my life. And when I learn, I'm able to, the world sort of disappears. It's amazing about when you open up a Gemara, right? So you're opening up something that part of it, the Mishnah was written around 2,000 years ago in either Jerusalem or Babylon. And the Talmud was written in Babylon around 1,500 years ago. Rashi on the right is coming from France, medieval France, around 1,000 years ago. Tosfos on the left is around 900 years ago. Then I have on the back, I have the Rosh who's from Spain, and also, and the Ramban, and suddenly from the whole world, I'm surrounded by 2,500 years of knowledge, or 3,000 from 5 continents. And they're all, for the most part, often disagreeing with each other and debating, and suddenly you get sucked into this debates, and you say, who's right and who's wrong? And let's look at how has time affected it? How has time proven who's right and who's wrong? And the world starts to disappear. Then setting boundaries around it. And when I'm in this room, my phone is gone, and that's how you do it.
Has your definition of success changed from when you were first selling encyclopedias, I did my research, to where you are today?
I don't think so. I think success to me is about fulfilling your potential. And your potential changes over time too, right? But I think that in each one of us, there is a book. And the book is waiting to be written. Everybody writes their own story. And it's up to one person.
You.
You.
Imagine if American youth would all know this, and every year they'd, at the beginning of whatever the beginning of the year is for them, they'd take time to write a 365-day personal mission statement or business plan. I think this country would look a lot different. People are reactive; they're not proactive.
Yeah.
What do you think is, just from somebody who's has his finger on the pulse of so many different things, what do you think is the single biggest mistake that young people starting out in their career have? They make the mistake. What is the mistake that they make? Or
I think young people don't realize, they don't teach this in school, and shame on them. They don't realize how often they will fail. And they don't realize that failure is a part of the process. And we look at digitized heroes, like guys like Zuckerberg, and there are people who magically, seem to have made it through, and there's a reason for that too. But the vast majority, the 99.99999%, including most of the Forbes 400, have failed many, many times. In Judaism, failure is part of life. We fall and we get up, and we fall and get up. And every day in our prayers we say, Lord, yesterday I think I really screwed up, but today let's hope for a better day. And when we recognize that failure is part of the process of success, and you're never going to shoot that three-pointer unless you've
taking the shot
many times and failed, right?
Yeah.
It's the 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3, right? And it's like that in life. So if we could say, I embrace failure as part of the process, and that the year that Babe Ruth hit his 60 home runs, he also led the league in strikeouts, right? And that takes away some of that stigma and fear and embarrassment. And I'm always talking about failures, right? I've had many, right? I have a big book at home, all my failures. I keep it, all the stupid things I have done, right? And when we recognize that, it's very empowering, right? And I think many kids, when they start out, have big dreams, right? And we want to dream big. There's something, I heard a story once. There was a little girl in class, an art class. She was like 5 years old in first grade, and she was drawing, and then the bell rang, and the teacher said, "Time's up." The kid keeps on drawing, and the teacher waits another minute. She goes back, and she says, it's time's up. She says, wait, I need another few minutes. She says, what are you drawing? I'm drawing a picture of God. So the teacher looks at her, she says, but nobody knows what God looks like. So the little girl looks at her, they will in 2 minutes.
Beautiful.
I think we all have dreams, and we have big dreams. And that's what we are as children. And you know that if you go into a first grade class, and the teacher picks up a red piece of oak tag, and she says, what color is it? If there's 25 kids in the class, how many will raise their hand? 24 or 23. Now fast forward to college, and the teacher asks the question, he, she, who has the answer to this on the board? How many kids will raise their hand? Maybe one. What happened between first grade and college? And the answer is, we happened. We shamed, we ridiculed, we mocked, we laughed, and we taught us not to raise our hands anymore. And that those dreams that we had when we were 3 and 4 and 5, to let them die, right? And when we go back out into the world and become older, we have an election to make. Do we want to be the 5-year-old, or do we want to be the 20-year-old? And one of the ways to have that courage, it's one of a few, is to recognize failure doesn't mean anything. It's just a step.
It doesn't define you at all.
It's a stepping stone. You learn from it. I think Somebody once said, you learn much more from your failures than from your successes. And that allows us to step back into our own 5-year-old shoes.
Do you have a mentor?
Many mentors. I'm a big believer. You know, when we go someplace, and I travel fairly often, my wife gets all upset. I always get, excuse me, where is that street? I just want to be sure. He's like, you asked 4 times already, you know, like you shouldn't ask so many directions. I'm the least embarrassed guy to ask. And people, for the most part, are willing to think, you know, where I'm going. And I very rarely end up in the wrong place when you ask 20 people along the way where you're going, right? And that's sort of a metaphor for life. There's so many expertises. I'm the guy who's always saying in meetings, wait, I don't understand that. Could you explain that? I don't get it. Explain it to me again. Why? Because there's nothing embarrassing about knowing. My Rebbe in Yeshiva was from Nachum Pertzavitz, may he rest in peace. And what his most common line when you would ask him questions was, that's a good question. That I don't know the answer to. That I don't know. That I don't know. And I learned from him that the wiser you are, you recognize that you don't know. And the people who don't ask and think they do know, it's either out of embarrassment or stupidity. So you ask me if I have mentors. I have many mentors.
Spiritual, professional?
Both. What do you think? I ask after that.
I think you surround yourself by people.
Mentors. Yeah, because in all these areas, there are people who know more than me. You know, there are so many different areas of expertise in any business, right? Why not ask when you don't know?
When you're looking to hire someone in your company, what are the key criteria for somebody that you think could be successful?
I think that absolutely the best criteria, depending on what age the person is what has the person done to date? Because even though they say in the bottom of the commercials, past credit is no
indication of future,
it's not true. Somebody who's paid their credit cards for years will continue to pay their credit cards, and somebody who hasn't won't pay you either, right? So it's really looking about what have you done to date, and if the answer is I've really failed at that, and I failed at that, and I failed, you're probably going to fail at your next job too, right? So to me, it's not important what school you went to, but were you interested in doing well at school? Did you do well in your class? Did you do well? You went to a C-class school because your parents couldn't afford to send you to someplace else, or because you had to help your mother because your father was sick. There's a million reasons. But while you were there, did you put in the effort and did you try? Because people who try will always try. And people who have figured out a way to succeed will always figure out a way how to succeed. And to me, that is the single best and most relevant thing when you're hiring.
If you were sitting with our 70,000, 80,000 Olami students and young professionals across the globe, literally 300 locations in 5 continents, and you had an opportunity to share one message with them, what would you tell them?
I would say, don't let fear impact your life. We know you have dreams. You know you have dreams. You know you have capabilities. You know how to think big. The joker in the deck is fear. And if you could make that commitment, I will not let fear get to me. I will fall down on my head. I will be bloodied. I will lose a tooth, but I will get back up. And I could fall again, and I will get back up again. Nobody's expecting you to get it right. Not in the first time, not in the second time, not in the third time. But if you have that commitment and you say, I will not fear, shame, I will not let negativity get in my way, you will be successful in a way that surprises you.
Thank you so much, David. It has been a true privilege. So many great things to think about. I think on my drive home from Manhattan, I'm just going to try to keep rehearsing what I heard. And you should continue to do great things for the Jewish people.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Thank you for listening to Jewish Grit, an Olami Mentorship podcast. At Olami Mentorship, we believe that everyone needs a mentor. What better way is there to tap into your personal and professional potential than with a Jewish mentor at your side? Learn more at olami.org/mentorship. Don't forget to keep listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.